The scream came from the forest. Sharp. Terrified. And then suddenly, it stopped. Like something had dragged it into the darkness. Kofi froze. His heart was pounding as he stared toward the trees. What was that? He whispered. No one answered. Because in the village of Abanji, everyone already knew. No one goes near the forest after sunset. No one asks questions. And most importantly, no one talks about what happens at night. Because deep inside that forest, something is waiting. Something that doesn't hunt. Something that is fed. Kofi had only arrived in Abanji that morning. To him, it was just another quiet African village. Small. Peaceful. Safe. But now, standing there in the darkness, listening to the silence that followed that scream, he realized something was terribly wrong. The villagers were already inside their homes. Doors locked. Fires lit early. No one dared to step outside. Not even the hunters. Not even the bravest men. And as Kofi slowly turned toward his uncle, he saw something he had never seen before. Fear. Real fear. Stay inside, Bobasiko said quietly. No matter what you hear. But it was already too late. Because somewhere deep in the forest, that same low sound began again. Not wind. Not animals. Breathing. And this time, it sounded closer. A shadow moved between the trees. Fast. Unnatural. Like something that didn't belong to the world of the living. For a split second, under the faint glow of the moon, a figure could be seen being dragged across the forest floor, their fingers clawing desperately at the dirt, leaving long scratch marks behind. Then, gone. Swallowed by darkness. Kofi woke up with a gasp. His heart was racing. Sweat covered his forehead even though the night air was cold. For a moment, he didn't know if what he saw was real, or just a dream. But then he remembered the scream. That scream wasn't a dream. It was real. And it had come from outside. Kofi quickly turned toward his uncle. Did you hear that? He whispered. Bobasiko was already awake. Sitting still. Silent. As if he had been expecting it. Yes, he said quietly. Kofi swallowed. Who was it? There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause. Then Bobasiko finally spoke. Someone who went too close. Kofi frowned. To the forest. But his uncle didn't answer. Instead, he slowly lay back down, turning his face away. The conversation was over. But Kofi couldn't sleep anymore. Not after what he heard. Not after that scream. Morning came like nothing had happened. The sun rose. Birds chirped. Children laughed again. The village looked normal. Too normal. Kofi stepped outside the hut, expecting to see panic, fear, people talking about what happened. But there was nothing. No crowd. No whispers. No sign that someone had screamed in the middle of the night. It was as if everyone had decided to forget. Kofi walked toward the well where a few women were gathering water. Did you hear it last night? He asked. The women froze. For a brief second, their hands stopped moving. Then one of them forced a smile. Hear what? She said. Kofi stared at her. The scream. Silence. Another woman quickly picked up her bucket. You must have been dreaming, she said, avoiding his eyes. And just like that, they walked away. Fast. Too fast. Kofi felt a chill run down his spine. They were lying. All of them. Later that day, Kofi noticed something else. There was one person missing. A young man named Tono. Kofi had seen him the previous evening near the edge of the village, laughing with a group of friends. But now, he was nowhere. Kofi found one of Tono's friends sitting alone near the baobab tree. "Where's Tono?" he asked. The boy hesitated. Then quietly said, "He left." Kofi frowned. "Left? When?" "Last night." Something about the answer felt wrong. Why would he leave in the middle of the night? Kofi pressed. The boy looked around nervously. Then leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "He didn't leave." Kofi's heartbeat quickened. Then what happened? The boy's lips trembled slightly. "He was chosen." Kofi felt his stomach tighten. "Chosen, for what?" Before the boy could answer, an elder's voice cut through the air. "Enough." Both of them turned. Standing nearby was an old man, his face lined with age and something darker. Something knowing. "Do not speak of such things," the elder said firmly. The boy immediately stood up and walked away without another word, leaving Kofi alone. Confused. And now, afraid. That evening, Kofi couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was wrong with Abanji. Very wrong. People were hiding something. Something connected to the forest. Something connected to the night. And whatever it was, it had taken Tono. Kofi stood outside his hut as the sun slowly began to set again. The same uneasy feeling returned. The same silence creeping in. One by one, doors began to close. Fires were lit. And the village once again prepared for the night. Kofi clenched his fist. "No," he whispered to himself. "This time, I'm not staying inside." Behind him, Boba Siko's voice came low and sharp. "If you step outside tonight." Kofi turned. His uncle's eyes were filled with fear. Real fear. "You may not come back." Kofi stared at him. And for the first time, he realized something terrifying. The villagers weren't just afraid of the forest. They were afraid of what would happen if they stopped feeding it. A hand shot out of the darkness, grabbing someone's ankle. The man didn't even have time to scream properly. His body slammed against the ground as he was dragged violently toward the trees, nails scraping against the dirt, leaving deep lines behind. "Help!" His voice cut off instantly. Like something had covered his mouth. Or worse, taken it. And from deep inside the forest, something moved. Watching. Waiting. Hungry. Kofi's eyes snapped open. His chest rose and fell rapidly. Another nightmare. Or maybe not. Because tonight, he wasn't inside. He was outside. Hidden. Watching. The village was darker than ever. Kofi crouched behind a broken mud wall near the edge of Abanji, his breath slow and controlled. He had made his decision. He wasn't going to stay inside like everyone else. Not tonight. Not after what happened to Tono. From where he hid, he could see something strange happening. Villagers were gathering. Quietly. No one spoke. No one made eye contact. Men, women, even elders. All moving in the same direction. Toward the forest. Kofi's heart pounded. "They are going there," he whispered. Carefully, silently, he began to follow. The deeper they moved, the colder the air became. The sounds of the village faded behind them. No insects. No wind. Just footsteps. And something else. That same low, breathing sound. Closer now. Kofi swallowed hard. But he didn't stop. After several minutes, the trees opened into a small clearing. And what Kofi saw made his blood run cold. Torches were planted in a wide circle. Their flames flickered wildly, casting long, distorted shadows. In the center of the clearing was a wooden structure. Old. Dark. Covered in strange carvings. Symbols Kofi had never seen before. And tied to it was a man. Alive. Struggling. Muffled cries escaped his mouth. Kofi's eyes widened in horror. No, he whispered. It can't be. It was Tono. The villagers formed a circle around him. No one tried to help. No one even looked afraid. Instead, they looked resigned. Like this was something they had accepted long ago. From the crowd, a figure stepped forward. An elder. But not the same one Kofi had seen earlier. This one wore a long, dark robe. His face painted with white markings. His eyes empty. Cold. He raised his hand. And instantly, everything went silent. Even the air. Then, the drums began. Slow. Deep. Boom. 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 Each beat echoed through the forest like a heartbeat. But not a human one. Something older. Something wrong. Kofi's breathing became shallow. His body screamed at him to run. But he couldn't move. He was frozen. Watching. The elder stepped closer to Tono. And spoke in a low, steady voice. Tonight, we give. The villagers lowered their heads. Tonight, we survive. Kofi's mind raced. Give, what, he thought. But deep down, he already knew. The elder turned toward the forest. And for the first time, Kofi followed his gaze. Into the darkness between the trees. At first, he saw nothing. Just shadows. Stillness. Then, something shifted. A shape. Tall. Unnatural. Too thin. Its form blended with the trees, almost invisible. But its eyes were not. They glowed. Faint. Pale. And they were staring directly at the clearing. At Tono. At the villagers. At Kofi. Kofi's heart stopped. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. It's real, he whispered. The stories. The fear. The silence. It was all real. The elder raised a knife. Long. Sharp. Reflecting the firelight. Tono struggled violently now. Muffled screams growing louder. Desperate. Terrified. But no one moved to help him. Not a single person. Please, Tono tried to scream. But the sound never fully came out. The drums grew louder. Faster. Boom. 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 And from the forest, that breathing sound returned. Closer. Hungrier. Kofi's entire body shook. This isn't right, he thought. They are killing him. They are feeding it. The elder lifted the knife higher. The villagers began chanting. Low. Rhythmic. Ancient. And the creature in the forest took a step forward. Kofi couldn't take it anymore. Without thinking, he moved. A small step. But enough. A twig snapped beneath his foot. Crack. Everything stopped. The drums. The chanting. Even the wind. The elder slowly turned his head. The glowing eyes in the forest shifted. And then, every single villager looked in the same direction. Toward Kofi. Silence. Dead silence. And then the elder spoke. Calm. Cold. Certain. Someone else, he said quietly, has come to feed the forest. Kofi's blood turned to ice. Because in that moment, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't just watching the ritual anymore. He had become part of it. Cold hands grabbed Kofi from behind. Before he could scream, something covered his mouth. His body was slammed to the ground, arms twisted painfully as villagers dragged him into the clearing. Let me go, he tried to shout. But no one listened. The circle tightened around him. The drums stopped. And the forest went completely silent. Kofi was thrown to his knees beside Tono. Their eyes met for a split second. Tono's face was pale, filled with terror. You shouldn't have come, he whispered weakly. Kofi's heart pounded. I'll get us out, he said, but even he didn't believe it. The robed elder stepped forward slowly. His eyes locked onto Kofi. Not angry. Not surprised. Almost satisfied. You were warned, he said calmly. Kofi struggled against the hands holding him. What is this? He shouted. Why are you doing this? The elder tilted his head slightly. To survive. A murmur spread through the villagers. Low. Uneasy. But obedient. Kofi looked around desperately. This is murder, he yelled. You're feeding people to that thing. For a moment. A flicker of guilt crossed a few faces. But it disappeared just as quickly. Replaced by fear. Then suddenly, a familiar voice spoke. Enough. Kofi froze. Slowly, he turned his head. And his heart dropped. Standing at the edge of the circle was Boba Siko. Uncle. Kofi whispered. Relief flashed in his eyes. You have to stop this. But Boba Siko didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't help. Instead, he stepped forward. Into the circle. Kofi's breath caught. No, you're not part of this. But his uncle avoided his eyes. His voice came low. Heavy. Broken. We don't have a choice. Kofi shook his head violently. There's always a choice. The elder raised his hand. Silencing everything. Then he pointed at Kofi. Tonight, he said quietly. The forest chooses differently. The villagers stiffened. Confused. Afraid. The elder stepped closer, staring directly into Kofi's eyes. And then he smiled. Cold. Dark. Unnatural. It doesn't want him. He said softly. Kofi's stomach twisted. What? The elder turned slowly toward Tono. Then back to Kofi. It wants you. From the forest. Something moved. Closer than ever before. Branches creaked. Leaves trembled. And those glowing eyes locked onto Kofi. For the first time, the villagers stepped back. Not from fear of the ritual, but from fear of him. Because now, Kofi wasn't just an outsider. He was marked. A low growl rolled out from the forest. Not loud, but deep enough to shake the ground beneath Kofi's knees. Leaves trembled. Branches bent, as if something massive was pushing through them. Closer. Closer. Kofi's breath turned sharp. "What is that?" he whispered. No one answered. Because everyone already knew. The villagers stepped back in unison, breaking the circle, creating space. Not for Kofi to escape, but for something to enter. Tono began shaking violently beside him. "No, no, it's not supposed to be like this," he cried. But the elder didn't even look at him anymore. His focus stayed on Kofi. "You were seen," he said quietly. "Once it sees you, it chooses you." Kofi's mind raced. This isn't real, this can't be real. But then, it stepped into the firelight. Kofi's body froze. It was tall. Too tall. Its limbs were long and thin, bending in ways that didn't look human. Its skin, if it was skin, looked like dark bark, cracked and shifting like a living tree. And its face. There was no face. Only a hollow shape. With two glowing eyes burning inside it. The air turned cold. Unnaturally cold. Kofi couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The creature tilted its head slowly. Studying him. Like prey. Then. It took a step forward. Kofi snapped out of it. "No." With a sudden burst of strength, he twisted his body, breaking free from one of the villagers' grips. He ran. Straight into the trees. "Stop him," someone shouted. But no one followed. Because the creature didn't chase immediately. It simply watched. Kofi ran blindly through the forest, branches cutting his arms, roots nearly tripping him. Behind him. Silence. No footsteps. No voices. But then. A sound. Right beside him. A whisper. Low. Breathing. Kofi turned his head. And saw it. Right there. Running, without moving. Gliding through the trees beside him. His heart nearly stopped. "You can't run." A voice echoed inside his head. Not spoken. Felt. Kofi stumbled. Fell hard to the ground. And when he looked up, the creature was standing in front of him. Blocking his path. Completely still. Waiting. Kofi's chest heaved. Tears filled his eyes. "Please," he whispered. The glowing eyes flickered. And slowly, the creature began to reach toward him. The creature's hand stopped inches from Kofi's face. The air froze. Time itself felt stuck. Kofi couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Those glowing eyes burned into him, not with hunger, but recognition. Then, images flooded his mind. Fast. Violent. Unstoppable. He saw the village, years ago. Empty. Starving. Children crying. Bodies buried in dry soil. Then the forest. Alive. Watching. Waiting. A deal. Unspoken. But understood. "Feed me, and live." Kofi gasped as the visions ended. Falling forward onto the ground. "No," he whispered. "This isn't just killing. It's a pact." Behind him, footsteps approached. Slow. Heavy. Boba Siko. "You see it now," his uncle said quietly. Kofi looked up, eyes wide with horror. "You knew, this whole time?" Boba Siko's voice broke. "I tried to protect you." The creature moved again. Closer. "But it doesn't want everyone," his uncle whispered. "It chooses." Kofi's heart pounded. "Why me?" Silence. Then the creature leaned closer. And a voice filled his mind. Cold. Ancient. Because. A pause. You belong to the forest. Kofi screamed. Kofi's scream echoed through the forest. Then stopped. Abruptly. Silence returned. Heavy. Unnatural. The creature's hand touched his forehead. Cold. Burning at the same time. Kofi's body went still. His eyes widened. Then slowly. The fear inside them faded. Replaced by something else. Something empty. Boba Siko stepped back, shaking. No, he whispered. But it was too late. Kofi stood up. Slowly. Not like before. Not human. The creature moved away. As if its job was done. The glowing eyes dimmed. And then disappeared into the trees. Gone. The villagers approached carefully. Afraid. Uncertain. Is it over? Someone whispered. Kofi turned toward them. His face calm. Too calm. Then he smiled. The same cold, unnatural smile. And in a voice that wasn't fully his. He said, "The forest is always hungry." The elder lowered his head. Understanding. That night. No one was taken. But something had changed. Because the forest didn't need to hunt anymore. It had something better. Someone who could walk among them. Watch them. Choose. Months later. Travelers passing near Abanji spoke of a man standing at the edge of the trees. Watching. Smiling. And every time the sun set, the drums still echoed. But now, they sounded closer. Because the forest was no longer just in the trees. It was in him.